Hi, welcome to Rye River Brewing Company. Today Geterbrewed have come down to visit one of our largest customers. They just happen to be the most highly decorated craft brewery in the world, and we're really proud to work with them, and we also have an exceptionally good working relationship. So I want to show you around, meet some of the team. Come on in. Taking a trip down to Rye River Brewing Company, and head brewer Bill Lakitis, good friend of mine and a great customer. We're very proud to be working with him. He's going to give us a tour of the brewery and show us around.
Just over this way. So today you'll see Dean is riding the brews today, so he's running us through production, so he'll be popping through here in a moment. This is our brew house. It's a 2,500 liter brew house. We're brewing 25 hect batches at a time. What you'll see here is it's still pretty hands-on, even though we're producing this year. We've got a target of 32,000 hectoliters. That's our grist case there, a ladder next to it. The lads are still loading it bag for bag, weighing it out. We're brewing 24/7 now, Jonathan, as of the start of about a month ago. Yeah. And what that means is now we're averaging 6 brews a day, 7 days a week. Yeah. So we're touching on 40 brews a week now.
It'd be fair to say that perhaps the guys that are watching this video wouldn't understand just how hard you guys are working. So if you're handballing that amount of malt in on that size of a brew house, the work ethic here is unbelievable, and I want to try and tell that story with the visit. So if you imagine 40 brews a week?
40 brews a week, you've got 500 kilos up to 800 kilos of brew being handballed into that grist case there. So we've supported our team to do that, because not only are we brewing at that pace, we're getting all the beer out of our tanks at the same pace. We've got 23 fermenters, 7 bright tanks. We've just put an order in for 2 more 100 hect fermenters to arrive in the background. So everybody's working. So it's a team of 3 that are hitting the ground every day here. A shift brewer, a transition brewer, an assistant brewer, but they're really working as one to make this all work. From mashing in, seeing the brews through, having the cellar ready, all those tanks ready to go and beer to.
And all of the malt, the spent grains, does that go to a local farming community, or what do you do with that?
Yeah, there's a farmer that's been with us since pretty much the beginning. When we started brewing up in Kilcock before we moved here, he still drives down. We've got a grain tipper here. Again, the lads, the plow drops and it pushes it out, but the lads pull it forward with the rake. They'll drive this out to the back. We've got a grain tipper, they tip it in. Our farmer's down a couple times a week, driving that off, dropping it to his cows and pigs.
And no complaints from going from 24/5 to 24/7 from him?
Oh yeah, no, he's getting used to the new schedule too. There's a bit more malt going through the plant.
In relation to malt, like, we're obviously very privileged to get the amount of malt supply that we do in here from Chris Malt, which is Norfolk based.
Yeah.
You're handballing everything then, so this is all, there's no bulk handling system, this is manual.
No, we are definitely looking at a bulk handling system in the future now that we're brewing at this pace for this long. But that being said, no, we've gotten some great malt from Crisp over the years, from traditionally floor malted malts, right up to their specialty malts that they're making in some cases small batches just for us, like a honey malt that we'd brought in for a few of our brews. So it's great to see, because again, it's all about your raw materials. Yeah. Behind us there you see our salts table. We have a reverse osmosis system out back. So for every beer that we brew, we create a unique water profile for what we're looking to achieve in the brew. Yeah. Then what malts are going in there? How are we going to make those shine on top of that water? Then what hops are going to be layered in there, and what do we want to push out of that with that as well? And then there's 4 different yeast strains that we propagate up in-house as well and keep going year-round. Which one of those is going to do the right thing to finish off that recipe? and then it's making its way through.
One thing that the viewers probably don't realise is that Bill still buys the little homebrew yeast sachets off us. And sachet, I mean like the liquid pitches, and then you propagate them up into commercial pitches yourself. So it's a lot of effort.
We've got an old candy mixer that we modified. So we're kind of stepping up in flasks. We're growing it to some kegs that we've modified into yeast drinks, and then we've got this old commercial candy mixer with the pharmaceutical agitator in it that we've then modified a bit more to grow that up. And next thing you know, it's in one of our small tanks. A week later, we're brewing it in one of our big tanks, and there we go.
That's the way it goes. So you want to take us over and show us around the fermentation hall?
Yeah. So as I mentioned a moment ago, we've stepped up to 23 fermenters now and 7 bright tanks to keep everything going. That's Aaron. He's one of our brewers here. So just to kind of show the scale here, this is one of the original tanks that's actually spec'd to that 2,500 liters with a bit of headspace. Okay, that's our roots, and now you'll look over just past the centrifuge there, and there is one of our 200 hectoliter tanks with a bit of headspace. So anywhere from 1 brew link to 8 brew links to fill what we're brewing here. And again, we brew at this point about 30 unique recipes year-round for release. So across these tanks, there's a lot of complexity in what's going on from day to day. Each recipe, we take, we get the concept in our head, we write that recipe from scratch. They're all that bit different, which I guess for being a production brewery like we are now, with brewing that many beers, at least it's keeping it interesting with something different going through the brew house every day.
Because we're in the area, obviously you see the centrifuge here, and none of the beers are filtered here. You're centrifuging it to try and spin as many particles out as possible, and then send it to the packaging line. Is that a fair comment?
That's the gist of it. Basically, we invest so much into having the right raw materials in our beers that we don't want to find that we strip out all the great character from those malts, from those hops, from that yeast. So we take a more delicate touch to it. The centrifuge does the heavy lifting after a conditioning period. Any yeast or hops that might still be in, centrifuge lifts them out on the way through. Then we let the beer condition a little bit longer or tweak the carbonation and get it ready for packaging.
Obviously, single brew tank, a tank that you're brewing eight batches into. How quickly are you putting 8 batches of beer into that?
Well, before we went to 24/7, we were actually doing it a little bit faster. The guys on average were mashing in a beer about every 3.5 hours and riding them on each other's coattails like that. Okay. Because we've got the extra time in the week now to kind of try to spread things out, we're targeting about every 4 hours we're mashing in a brew. And then seeing it through. A brew takes anywhere from 6.5 hours to 8 hours, depending on the recipe, what we're trying to achieve.
The brew house is Irish made, the fermenters are Irish made. That's a talking point for you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So you were standing over by our brew house. When the brewery got started, it was important to them to try to involve other local Irish businesses. So they reached out to an Irish engineering firm and had them commission that brew house. And likewise, we followed in suit with that. Every stainless steel tank that's been added to the tank farm as well since the original brewery has been from an Irish manufacturer as well. So these 3 tanks actually only arrived in December of last year, and we thought they'd get us through this year. With that being said, I've got 2 more identical tanks to these showing up in 15 weeks from today. And again, a big part of the job there, Aaron, who we walked by a minute ago, a lot of what we're doing here is cleaning. And again, everything that you do in a brewery is about keeping the right environment for that yeast to succeed and thrive, and the yeast to be the dominating thing in that brew to drive it forward. So again, we're actually standing next to a tank that's in the middle of a CIP as well. Aaron, though, is multitasking there and cleaning another tank over there at the same time. That's a bit of the pace that the lads are used to working at here. It's all hands on deck.
What got you into brewing?
Look, I've always loved beer. I grew up in Holland, Michigan, and great beer on my doorstep. Bell's Brewery, Founders Brewery, New Holland Brewing. These were the beers that found their way into my hand at too young of an age. And then I traveled the world. Ireland's the 7th country I've lived in and worked in and studied in. And when I got here, there's a big beer history and beer culture here too. Next thing you know, I found myself needing to know that bit more about beer. So I started making beer at home, making it in buckets, reading everything I could about it. It led to some opportunities where I found my way, apprenticing in actually properly brewing here at Rye River Brewery when they were only young. And we're 7 years old right now, and I've been here for 5 of those years.
You come in here apprenticing, you're now the head brewer, so how long did that transition take?
It's always an interesting journey, but it was about two years in that the direction stepped up towards head brewer. And that's an interesting bit in our timeline where we kind of took a big change in the focus in the beers that we were brewing and how we wanted to get them out to everybody.
And how does it feel being the world's most highly decorated craft brewery and you being the head brewer? Is that like, do you need to hold that title now? Or is it just that you feel that you've reached it, you're just happy with the recognition? Or
look, it's anytime somebody appreciates one of your beers, you're flattered. The only reason I'm here brewing beer is because of how much I like beer and that I want to make great beer. And that's really all it's about. So every beer that you're working on becomes your favorite beer while you're working on it. In fact, in a moment, I'll get to show you our newest seasonal. Today, we launched infused 200 kilos of exotic fruits, blood oranges and cactus fruits into a special one-off fruited sour that'll be coming out of tank in about 2.5 weeks that I'm very excited about. So it's stuff like that. Again, that beer, I want that beer to be the best beer that you're going to drink when you crack that can open, and the next one's going to have that same ambition behind it.
So packaging, can we have a quick look at what's available here? Obviously we've got draft that you package for, not so much of that going out at the moment because of the whole pandemic, but...
Yeah, look, kegging, we are dying to all go enjoy a pint of draft beer sooner than later. So we've actually been firing that up this week in anticipation of hopefully the beer pouring from taps sooner than later. So it's starting to get some attention again, which is great. But for the last 12 months, it's been all about small pack. So our bottles, we have, again, 5 different brands that we produce here right now. The County Brewing Company brand that we do is running through the line. That personally is one of my favorite lagers. I can't speak highly enough of that lager that's coming off the line right now. It was a World Beer Award winner as well at a point in time. 16 head counter pressure filler running here, an inline carbonator on the way, so the lads have basically centrifuged the beer across. It's settled into one of those BBTs there. On the way, we've got a bit of quality control equipment in line here where we can check the levels of oxygen that we might have picked up along the way, check the carbonation that's going forward to the packaging line. We can tweak that carbonation here so it's right in line to how we want that to be enjoyed when you get that bottle of beer in your hand. And as you can see though, it's hands-on. The bottles are coming off the line. They're being inspected by an operator who's checking the fill level, the labels put on correctly. He's segregating them if anything stands out before they go to wrapping. And again, once the pallet's made up, everybody's same level of care. They're going to pull that off. It'll get quality controlled in the morning. Make sure everybody's happy with that before it goes up into our racking. And then it's destined to go around the world.
Yeah. When do we get to drink the beer? That's cool.
I think now is a great time to start. One off the line is always worth sampling, but in a moment I'd like to bring you over to that fermenter as well. Yeah. Because you can't be in a brewery and not drink one.
Not drink beer?
That's fresh out of the tank. Cheers.
Tom will be going BRC, he'll not have this. Open bottle in the brewery floor.
Look, it's a part of the job that's important though. Every Every hour, a beer is brought up to a brewer in this brewery just to be tasted, not to be drank, but to be tasted. Goes across the lips. Check the carbonation's tasting right. Check everything's tasting right. Again, that's cross-referenced with those quality checks I told you about, and it just makes sure that the beer that's getting capped is the beer that we want to go out the door to you.
So you're packaging kegs, bottles, cans, or a growing line for you as well. So is it here as well?
Follow me this way. We brought in a canning line this year. We're starting to enjoy that area of the market a little bit more. So at the moment, as we find our feet, we're leasing a canning line. We did a 40-hect run of our grapefruit session IPA today. So here we've got a 5-head filler. Again, the cans come down the conveyor when it's running. We've got a air filter there that'll make sure there's no foreign objects in the can as they're passing. They'll come down there. We set the correct fill levels so that we're capping just on that little bit of fob, and we're happy with that, so we're not picking up DO. Again, we'd be piercing cans as they're coming off the line, checking that we're happy with what we're packaging.
Like, obviously, bottles are massive volumes here. Do you think that bottles are going to always have a place in the market, or do you see the movement towards cans?
Look, in this market, there are a lot of consumers who love the glass bottle. That being said, the can is also enjoyed by many beer aficionados these days. What's great is that we can cater to both formats. I'd love to see us step up our canning. Coming from the States again, can is king. I'd love to see a bit more of it. And you think about the beer that you're brewing, we've got our special releases that go into 750 quart cage bottles, and I couldn't imagine that beer in any other format. But then, there's your time for those cans that you might want to go crack down by the canal, or else you've got the bottle for the restaurant,
So in relation to quality and consistency, they're two things that I would refer to, good quality breweries that we work with, and that's something that you perform exceptionally well at. What sort of tips would you give to the viewers in relation to maintaining that quality and consistency here?
Yeah, look, I think quality and consistency have to be your biggest focuses when you start brewing. It's great to be dropping one-off interesting beers, but if you ever have to brew it again, you want people to know they're going to get the exact same beer in their hand. Or if you're brewing everyday beers, like this one, that should be hopefully found in someone's fridge every day of the week, they need to come back to it and know it's the same great beer. So in that respect, don't take shortcuts ever. What you put in is what you get out. DO, tracking your oxygen levels, maintaining your yeast health, your cleanliness, your hygiene. These things are huge, and investing in things like, I remember the first piece of kit that seems really expensive but pays for itself instantly would probably be a dissolved oxygen meter. It's just so important to have in the brewery so that your beer is going out fresh and you haven't spoiled it before it's left. Again, tracking what you're doing, making sure you're hitting your targets. Always be critical of your beer. Taste your beer in the ferment every step of the way. Taste the wort. Taste the grain when it comes in from the bag. Taste the wort as it's going through the brew house. Taste it as you transfer it. Taste it every day through a fermentation so you get to know your yeast, its profile, how it changes as it's going. Taste the beer before you transfer it to the centrifuge. Taste it after you've transferred it into the bright tank. Taste it when you're packaging it. Those things are really what let you know that your beer is on path to being the beer that you want going out the door. And do all of that responsibly. It sounds like a lot of drinking. And then, and just pay attention to it. If you look after it like that, you'll have a great beer.
I would say one of the things that I like the most about you and your approach to brewing, whenever I met you and we became friends throughout this whole business relationship, that you never question the quality of the ingredients, you never cut corners, you never argue over a price point on it. You're always just, it needs to be that malt because that's the malt I want. It needs to be that hop because that's the hop I want, and the same with the yeast.
No, 100%. Don't let the finance department hear you say that. But no, you need to be clear in what it is you want. There's no reason to cut corners. Again, what you put into a beer is what you get out. And we spend a lot of time here talking to the other brewers. What do you like out of a beer? Is that good? Every week as well, we have quality tasting panels that meet. Are we still hitting the same targets? But all of that, it comes back to, did we grab the right ingredient at the start? You know, is that where we want to be? Can we taste that? Constantly analyzing it. They're key things. And a great malt is going to give you a great beer. A great water profile and good water is going to let that malt shine. Hops, everybody loves them. You got to make sure you've got fresh hops coming in the door. And that.
Talking of beers, out of, like, obviously for me, my beer of choice changes depending on the season, the mood, whatever environment you're in. What's your favorite go-to Rye River beer?
Just coming to the close of Miami J season, so there's always some cans that go home with me, and I enjoyed that thoroughly. I've recently been playing with a different lager recipe. It's the start of summer. Lagers, they're crisp, they're refreshing, so I've been enjoying that beer a lot. And now, as of today, I can't get my head off the sour that's sitting in FE6 over there, because again, we did a quick sour, a kettle sour with some Helveticus Plantarum that you actually supplied. So over the moon with where that takes just the profile of the beer before we start to tweak it. Put it into a fermenter on Tuesday when we got back after the long weekend. The fermentation is ripping through with our house ale yeast, and today we had to get that fruit in now before the gravity went too far. And cactus fruit, blood orange, bringing some great notes from watermelon, raspberry, grapefruit. Already a lovely sour that was down at about 3% when we pitched in the fruit pH. It's exciting. We'll go have a sip.
What, in relation to the sour, what sort of hops are you going to put into the mix there, or are you going to just let the fruit?
No, like again with the sours, really don't focus on bitterness or hops so much. In this case though, there's a German hop that I love that finds its way into my sours often, but just a touch of it, and that's Tradition. So we've got some German Tradition that's come over, and it's in there just to let you know that there's a touch of a hop in there. You know.
So we've touched a little bit on hops. So hops would be like your Big Bangin' Francis IPA. It's Big Bangin' IPA now.
Big Bangin' IPA.
So I'll drop the Francis bit. So
no, very good.
So your Big Bangin' IPA. Double IPA is obviously one of the most well-renowned IPAs. Hop forward, it's got that punch that the hop addicts are looking for. What type of profile do you take whenever you're looking at creating an IPA? So that's obviously won awards throughout the world. It's recognised as a go-to double IPA locally. So where's your mind at whenever Bill's designing that recipe?
Well, it depends. That's the interesting thing here. We've got a number of IPAs we offer through the brewery now, which is great. So Francis is your classic kind of West Coast approach, where then, or Big Bangin' as we're calling it now, is we're kind of moving some of the beers into Rye River branding at the moment, which is an exciting thing coming up in August. We've got Dan's, which is our double IPA. We can't keep that on the shelf. It's 8%. It's a very classic hop forward approach to that one. Whereas then our session IPA or DARAGH'S, there's a twist of that with grapefruit that was canned today. But the normal recipe of it, again, that's about bringing a bunch of American hops to the forefront, but low alcohol, 3.8%. Nice body to it that pillows it out a little bit, but still makes it real sessionable, one you can keep drinking. We've got a retro IPA that's kind of a throwback to the English and kind of early American IPAs with that bit of crystal malt in it, led by a hop like Cascade. It just depends what we're doing. We've got in the Rye River range that's coming out, we're introducing a everyday hazy IPA, as that's a lot of focus on that at the moment. So that's about the right strain of yeast, and then a couple hops that have the right oils in them that are really going to shine when they react during their fermentation with that yeast. And we're looking forward to launching that one on everybody in a couple months.
This gives people a little bit of a perspective of the scale of the hard work that goes in here.
Yeah.
You look at the amount of packaged beer.
And it's mad because one day you'll come in and it looks like this. It was only a month ago that we had 22 containers leave on the same day, shipping their way around the world. We mentioned how we have the weekly tasting panel, and we touched on how quality and consistency needs to be a big focus. Not many people ever make it up to this room other than our brewers. Yeah. But if you wander back through our packaging room here, what you end up seeing is our shelf life room. Yeah. And in here you'll find a case of every beer that we have packaged throughout the year, logged, and we'll do horizontal tastings throughout the year, as well as every week we taste every beer that was packaged during the week. Yeah. So we can do a quick assessment of how it rates. Yeah. If we want it out the door, has to score a 4 or a 5 on a scale of 5 to be allowed out the door. But otherwise then they all move in here. And then if anybody were to ever give me a call and say, hey, you know, I had one of your beers and I thought it tasted like this, I can walk in here, I can pull one off the shelf. And then also if there's any need to, we can run different tests on it as well. We've got a PCR machine over there, a number of tests we can run on that. Yeah. We've got an incubator there that we do forced shelf life testing with as well. If we want to see what this beer that was packaged today would taste like in a couple months, I can tell you that in a couple days. Yeah. A few things like that we're working on in here. But in this room as well, there's a couple flasks lying around. Let me grab one there. This would get sterilized downstairs. We have another room where we've got some gas burners, and we literally take one of those homebrew pitches that we buy in from a crowd like White Labs, and we'd throw our eyes over it, and then we'd end up growing a couple liters of it. Next thing you know, I've got a keg downstairs where we're going to step that into 24, 48 hours later as it started growing on a stir plate. And then we oxygenate that, agitate that for another 24, 48 hours, depending on what we're going for. And then you're going into our old candy mixer, which holds about 300 liters. Yeah. And we've had a couple of these things growing up, and next thing you know, we're growing that into a pitch that probably suits one of our 25 or 50 hect tanks. Yeah. Or else we get a bit creative and we put it in a bigger tank, start brewing into it, take a break, come back to it, and we can get going.
Yeah. So there's a real focus on the quality control in here. So the quality control being dealt with at a brewer level, or is there a quality control manager, or how's that managed? Is that your job at the end of the day?
There's a whole lot of people involved in making sure that there's great beer coming off the line. We do have a quality control officer. We recently all put in a massive effort to get our BRC certification for the site, showing that the quality of the beer is consistent, the traceability behind everything that we're doing. But I've also got a quality technician as a lead cellarman. Our plant manager is a former brewer here as well, so he understands the ins and the outs and has a great mind for making processes that little bit more efficient. My senior brewers, they've all kind of stepped up over the years, learning the ropes in here as well. So everybody's bringing that keen eye for detail to every step that we're doing along the way.
So one thing I want to touch on, because BRC, you guys going for BRC forced me to up our game at Geterbrewed, obviously, because we needed to step up to that level to be able to continue to work with you. How did you find that process, and has it benefited you having the accreditation at the other end of it?
Look, it's massively beneficial to have somebody say you care about every step of your process, from before you even take a supplier on, to when those goods get delivered to you, to once they're in your building, making sure they're stored correctly, to through your brewing process till it gets into the bottle, and that you're going to stand by that product as it goes out on the shelves. Yeah, that's invaluable to us, and we've never been prouder to see that we were able to reach that accomplishment. Yeah. And look, there's about 60 employees in this company, and everybody was hands on deck in that process. Yeah. So I was telling you about High Noon, our most recent Rye River seasonal kettle sour. Here you go. The fruit went in only about 6 hours ago, earlier on shift today. So let that settle down a second, but take a sniff. You've got cactus fruit, you've got blood orange on top of a Helveticus kettle sour.
The aroma is incredible, man.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It's so fresh, it's so crisp. I literally can't wait right now for this beer to finish fermenting, which I'd expect it to attenuate out tomorrow. Then we'll start to let it settle for a couple days, condition. About a week later, get it ready for packaging.
You can feel the tang in the cheeks, like definitely feel the tang.
We achieved about a 3.1 pH just on the kettle sour alone before we put that big fruit charge into this beer. This is a really exciting release.
Did you pre-acidify the wort before you added the Helveticus?
Yeah, definitely. It's recommended, though I wouldn't say it's necessary when you're buying in a pure pitch like that. But in that case, we dropped it down to about 4.8. And then we let the Helveticus rock away at about 38 degrees for 48 hours. Okay. Then came in, checked that pH, the bottom had fallen out of it, and finished the beer off and sent it into here.
Yeah. What was the finishing pH? 3.1? 3.1. Yeah, you get that. But it's nice, like it's hard.
And then actually, you asked me about a bit of hops earlier. We threw that tradition in when we brought it back up to pasteurize it before sending it forward. Brought about 14 IBUs into the mix, which just also the hops kind of bring that pH back up a minute to about 3.2, 3.25. And then our fruit went back in, and we'll see where that finishes out now.
No, good work. Good. Very nice.
Launch it.
Let's launch it. This is Tom Cronin, Managing Director, co-founder of Rye River Brewing Company. It's been a great pleasure for Geterbrewed and for myself to get to know you. Obviously, we've had a nice roller coaster ride from that hotel that we stayed in when I took you to visit the maltings, right through to what we've achieved together. And look, I just want you to tell our viewers and obviously your own customers, where's the brand going and what do you see is the future for Rye River Brewing Company?
So look, it's an ever-evolving story, I suppose, Jonathan, and we're very conscious of the great brands that we've created over the last few years. And we're a complex brewery, as Bill has shown you. 24 fermentation vessels with 26 recipes on the go every week. Yeah. So a game of Tetris, but within that, we're always trying to evolve the brewery. And the next step is to bring out a brewery-led brand, and it's something that I've intended doing for many a year now, but timing is everything because we've just come through a very tough year, as have the whole industry, and yet we had brands that sat in retail that were really trusted and signpost brands. So timing is everything. So hopefully in August of this year, we're going to launch a new Rye River brewery-led brand, and you'll hopefully see that listed nationally in retail, and before that in on-trade. So I can give you a bit of insight that we are in the current process of transitioning all our McGargle taps in on-trade into the Rye River brand. So when the pubs do open in Ireland in the coming weeks, which is great, you're going to see Rye River on tap, and I'm really excited because it's the same great recipes. It's just a new brand. It's a brand strategy, and it's a brewery-led brand strategy. And look, if you look at all the great breweries that are around the world, 99% of them are brewery-led. You know, so it's the natural evolution. But we've been working on this for a while because we have introduced the Rye River Seasonals, which was brewery-led orientated. Last year we introduced the Rye River logo onto our McGargle's brand in retail. So it's a progressive journey, but yeah, exciting times.
You must be incredibly proud of how you have turned this place around. You know, it went from, it's no hidden secret that it had a difficult time many years ago, and now, I'm incredibly proud of what you've achieved. But personally, you must look at this and say, wow, you know, because
I do, and thank you, and it's you know, the success is the people around you. So I'm very lucky. We've a really good retention rate here. So Bill is with us and came on the journey and probably believed that there was something to salvage here, not only salvage, but you know, a bit of history to be made along the way. You know, first brewery to get BRC. I heard you talking about it a while ago. You know, most decorated brewery last year at the World Beer Awards. You know, and that's a big statement for an independent brewery in Selbridge that in 2016 was on its knees. You know, so yeah, look, I'm very proud, but it's I might steer the ship, but it's the 59 other people that are making it happen. You know, and that's the reality. It's not cliche. So yeah, I am delighted and I'm very proud, and I've never been more confident about our future, which is great, because there are times, and you have your own business, and getting Geterbrewed out there the way you have is amazing as well. But it's it can be a journey, and a lonely journey at times, when you question and doubt, because there's many other jobs, you know, reliant on maybe your thought process working, you know. No, but it's
you choose to do this. You could have a role in a senior management, operation level, director level in any company, probably getting paid much more money than you're getting paid now, and you choose to do this because it's clearly something you're passionate about.
Absolutely. Well, I always felt, you know, look, we all have kids, and one lesson I give is don't give in. You know, the easy option would have been to give in, and it's not always about the money. It's about what you create, and I think Rye River is creating a bit of legacy, you know, and we're certainly a well-respected brewery in Ireland and in Europe now, and that was the ultimate goal, you know, get respected and produce consistently good beer and maybe raise the standard a little. And I think we've played our part in that, because there's no doubt Irish craft beer is really in a good place, and we've played a part maybe in challenging the standards at times, and you've seen the process we do, and that hasn't changed. It's only improving. Did we have to take on BRC? No, but we did, because it was it's a process that proves you're committed to all aspects of your operation. But I wouldn't change it. I commute up here, I stay up a few nights, and it's certainly not an easy lifestyle, but it's brilliant when you see the success, you know. So
it's fair to say that, like, we like to think, Deborah and ourselves, or myself, like to think that we're a force for good in business, and it's not just a sales pitch to our staff, but you put a lot back into the team here. You know, you try to incentivize them and make them feel valued. And do you think that that's a good business move, to try and lift people to really buy into what they're doing, as opposed to just the 9 to 5 getting up and, you know, struggling to get the day in and work? You know, the team here are motivated, is what I'm getting at. You know,
we have a good energy, there's no doubt, but like, we have a very open policy. So if you ask Bill what's happening in marketing, or you ask marketing what's happening in demand planning, or demand planning what's happening in sales, they all know each other's needs for the week, targets for the week. Targets is the wrong word, but what we're all working on, because we have a weekly huddle, which is sacrosanct. One meeting I won't change in a week is 11 o'clock meeting on a Wednesday morning, 10 people involved, CFO, myself, and all departments. And everyone leaves that meeting feeling that they're part of this story. And I have a saying, you know, don't leave that meeting if you're unsure about anything, you know. We also have a culture here which, you know, I don't want to be cliche, but the Rye River Way, and it's something that I had developed before we ever put a word on a wall. So we were living it before we actually started putting the signs up. And people were like, okay, we are doing it. But once you script it and you put it on an A4 page, you have to live by it, and we do. And I think that's probably brought this culture where people aren't afraid to make a mistake. You know, we've just gone 24/7. We have now 4 teams working 12-hour shifts. It's inevitable, you know, things are going to go wrong. But if people are learning and aren't chastised and come out the other end, that's what creates a culture like this, you know. And we all make mistakes. Have I made them? Of course I have, you know. Has Bill made them? Of course he has.
So I get asked all the time by customers, people ringing up, email inquiries, what would the top tip you would be to someone starting a brewery? So can you give any words of wisdom? You know, now, like, for me, right, I come down to Rye River and I would say, you know, what the awards are great, quality's great, consistency's great, work ethic's great, you know, just the attention to detail that you guys put into it. You don't cut any corners, you know. So that's all simple stuff, but if you were someone's at the minute thinking I'd like to open a brewery, what would be the number one point you'd say to them, keep in the very front of your mind?
It's certainly not an easy task. And there's so many aspects to getting a consumer, not maybe to engage. Curiosity will get them engaged for the first time. Quality, consistency, branding, how you interact with the consumer is what's going to bring them back. And I think we've got good at that over the years. You know, we have really credible brands that are, as I said, signpost brands in retail and in export and doing exceptionally well. But it's because the liquid, you know, branding brings them in, liquids bring them back. You know, focus on your liquids, focus on your product quality, your process, and to make that happen, you need great people. So surround yourself with great people, you know, and have deep pockets.
Yeah, very deep pockets, yeah.
Well, everybody, that was Rye River Brewing Company. I think you'll agree it's incredible the work ethic that they have here. Just how hard they work on such a small brew house. The fact that they work 24/7, the fact that they put such a emphasis on quality and consistency, and the fact that it's just a lovely team of people. So we've really enjoyed today. We hope you have enjoyed an insight into one of Ireland's largest breweries and the most highly decorated craft brewery in the world right now. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy brewing.